how do I talk to ranchers? He said, I don't know how. How do I knock on a door and talk to a rancher? And do I ask him about how many calves he's got, how many cows he's got? And I go, no, you cannot ask that question. You cannot ask how much money he's got, how much land he's got, how much cows. You cannot ask that question. I said, you'll get run off. I said, there's 2 or 3 things you can do that are neutral ground. If you can tell him who you are, introduce yourself to him. And I said, the first thing we want to talk about, this neutral ground, is the weather. You can talk about the weather. Everybody knows the weather. It's happening right now. And I said, before you come, what you need to do is you need to, on his ranch, you need to go back in the archives and you need to print off the last 10 years, how much rainfall he's had, what the temperatures have been, what the weather patterns have been, and print that all off. And then your first thing you ask him about a conversation is ask him about, boy, it sure is hot out here today. When was the last time you got a rain? And he'll tell you exactly when he's got his last rain. And you start talking. And he'll go, boy, it's been a dry year. And they said, it was dry once before back in maybe 2017. Or you go, well, look here. And you can pull out that out. You can look at it, show it to him, and let him look at it. And he'd go, yeah, it was 2017. That was a real dry year. We only got 5 inches of rain for the whole year or whatever, you know. And I said, you can't go wrong talking about the weather. Don't ask him about his cows, and don't ask him about his plants or his grass or any of that stuff. Just talk about the weather. I said, if you want to talk about wildlife, I said, in this part of the country right here, in the central grasslands here in Kansas, I said, if you want to really get somebody's attention and talk about something that does not bother anybody, ask him about quail. Quail are not a threat to anybody, and everybody loves to eat quail. They taste good, and everybody loves them, and they can be in your yard, and everybody loves quail, and they don't eat the same thing cows eat, and they don't do anything wrong. Quail don't do anything wrong. I said they are the most friendly, best bird there ever was invented to talk about, as neutral as you can come. And so just ask him about quail. And if he asks you a question about quail, you tell him about quail or whatever. And I said, you will never go wrong talking about quail. Now you start talking about other things like prairie chickens or an endangered species, a beetle or a toad or something like that, and you might rile up feathered. But quail, never go wrong with quail. That's how you start a conversation about wildlife. I said, if you want to talk about plants, most people in the ranching community have been out on the land their entire life. And they are expected to know every plant out there. And they are embarrassed to say that they don't know every plant. They don't know any plants out there. And no one taught them. So don't mention plants. Don't ask him about this plant or that plant unless he asks you to show him. I said, but you can ask him about invasives, because he'll know about invasive plants. He's well aware of that. In our particular country, it's Sericea lespedeza. You mention, if you don't mention Sericea lespedeza, just mention invasive plants. And if he says Sericea lespedeza or he says something like that, then try to explain to him about that, and then from that work into something else. Try to stay on neutral ground. And this guy's writing this all down. You know, he said, boy, he said, I sure need that. So we get on the bus and we get to where we're going. We're having a field day or whatever. And another person, as we're going back, another young person, probably in his early 20s, another biologist, he said, hey, I was visiting with Sam over there, and he said some of these things you were talking about. He said, could you explain those to me? How do I talk to a rancher? And here's all these young biologists that are 3 generations removed from the land, but they are very, very smart, and they're very passionate, and they want to help, and they want to do this, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to make the land better. But no one has ever taught them how to approach and talk to a rancher and get to the kitchen table. And there are just certain things you don't say to a rancher, or you'll just have to leave. You won't ever get invited to the table. So I said, you got to stay away from those. But then once you get his trust, then you can talk about anything. And then he'll start asking you questions. He'll ask you, can you identify this? Can you identify that? And that's when you come up with it. And so there's a whole world out there that we need to talk and to trust each other. Because without them, I don't think anything's going to change here. And without us, they're not going to be able to change anything.